Hello and welcome to my video. Right, I had an idea. Well, first of all though, it's been a while since I uploaded a video, so apologies for that in case you missed me. You might not have missed me, of course. You might have thought, well, at last he's disappeared. But anyway, I'm back. And I decided that, as it's been a long time since I painted actually. The last time I painted was a few weeks back now. In fact, I can probably figure out when it was. Right, yeah, I haven't painted since the 16th of October, so it's like, well, about 2.5 weeks, and about time I got back into it. So I figured that maybe everyone could do with an update on clouds and how simple they are. That's why I called this video Send in the Clouds. Get it? Okay. And so unbelievably simple painting. Lots of clouds. Let's start with some ultramarine blue. And as I'm chucking this on here, I have to say I get lots of people asking me about these brushes, and I can't tell you who makes them. There are no maker's marks, nothing. There's a barcode. That's it. And they come from a hardware store in France called Monsieur Bricolage, and that's all I can tell you. They're ridiculously cheap, and they do the job. So clouds, right, now look, if I can do this, believe me, you can do it. If I can paint clouds, anyone can paint clouds. There's a bit of blue, ultramarine blue, lovely blue, as close as you'll get to lapis lazuli, I think, pretty well, without getting lapis lazuli. And I do still, somewhere on my desk here, I still have some actual lapis lazuli, which, if I can find it, I'll insert a picture on the screen. But if it doesn't turn up, I put it down somewhere and I can't find it, but I know I've got some anyway. And that was sent to me by one of my students years ago, and I've still got it. The problem is, you see, well, it's not a problem. It was a small sample, that's all. And if I mix oil with it, that's it. It'll be gone in one brush stroke. That's how small the sample is, and I still can't find it. So maybe I'll stop looking, get on with this. And yeah, it's a gorgeous blue. It's on the same gorgeousness level as royal blue. Okay, so we got this. Right, so look. If you think you can't do it, think again. See, that is going to be a sky. Believe it or not, that is the beginnings of a sky. And people often say they see a face in the sky. I personally can't see it myself, but the reason I did this is just to show you that it doesn't matter what you do, just do it. Just put anything on there, like so. Okay, now, that's the start. And what I'm going to do, without cleaning the brush, I'll give it a wipe, but I won't clean it. I very rarely clean these brushes anyway, because they're so cheap. Right, so just a wipe with a piece of paper, just to take it, most of the paint off. And then let's get some royal blue. I'm adding a bit of oil to this, just to sort of get the paint slightly mobile. Oh, and I just want a little message for some people. Some of my patrons and a customer are waiting for paintings. Now, and I'll just remind you on the saga of the non-drying paint, I bought some zinc white. Now, I know zinc white doesn't dry as quickly as titanium white, but because I've never used zinc white, always avoided it. Once I heard that it takes a long time to dry, years and years ago, I avoided it. So I've got a painting which someone has purchased. I'll put a picture on the screen, this one. And it's over 2 months now, and the white on it is not dry. It's driving me completely bonkers. This one has been, but the person has paid. Have they paid for this one? No, but they bought it. It's a verbal agreement. There's another painting which is a seascape, which took about the same sort of time, well over 2 months to dry, and that's this one, which is now varnished and ready to go probably next week. And that's going off to the States, which is where most of my paintings go, actually. So yeah, avoid zinc white. It's irritating as heck. There we go. That's how easy skies are. So send in the clouds and see what happens. Now I've chucked this paint on here. What I'm going to do now, a little bit of reduction. Just a few pieces of this paper. The extra tough, not like your standard kitchen paper towel, quite tough, although it will break, but as you can see, you know, pretty strong stuff, and you don't want anything falling apart. You know, you want something that's got a little bit of strength to it. So all I'm doing now is just reducing. There's hardly any paint on here, but all I'm doing is just sort of making it. Is that word again? Interesting. Make the paint interesting, so that even if you paint a picture that you're not awfully proud of, the paint may look good. But anyway, you just have to trust me. This does work. I've done it, I've lost track how many times now? Thousands of times. Just put the paint on, push it about. I've got a vague idea in my head now that of what's going to happen to this. Can't tell you exactly what will happen because it's not the way I work. Sums up my life actually in many ways. Let's try this, see what works. I'm talking about my life, not the painting. But anyway, let's try this and see whether this works. So all we've done is put some paint on and then turn it into more of a stain on the board so that I don't get bogged down. So clouds, how do you make clouds? Well, if you look at the sky, handy, isn't it, the sky? Because if you're going to paint clouds, if you're lucky enough to live somewhere where you get some decent clouds, then all you've got to do is go outside and look up on a cloudy day. Cloudy and sunny is always better than cloudy and dull. And all the reference you want is up in the air. There we are, a little bit of light there. So by putting down a dark blue and a light blue, and then adding a bit of white, and taking away paint, you start to sort of see patterns. The way any sky evolves, if you sit and look at the sky, and a useful tip, if you want a really interesting sky, wear dark glasses. Preferably polarized dark glasses. Look at the sky. And you'll see things that you wouldn't normally see. Funnily enough, mentioning that, I've been thinking about it for years. I've never tried it, and that is to paint a sky with wearing dark glasses and see what happens. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? It could be a complete mess, of course, but it's on my bucket list. So now I'm not thinking, ooh, I'll have a towering cloud here, or I'll have one there, although I have got a large amount of white up here, and I think I could probably use that as the main focus. Maybe that's going to be right up at the top above our heads, and then down here the clouds will all break up, and then for the landscape there will be some sap green and red ochre, but I'm going to sort of change it slightly. Do I hear a sigh of relief? because I know I do paint. Oh yes, that's something that reminded me. Someone said, why do you always paint the same thing? Do you know, I don't think anyone ever asked Rembrandt that question, or Van Gogh, or whoever. I'm not comparing myself to those people, but whatever you paint, if it's your subject, it's your subject. And this is my subject, landscapes and stormy clouds. That's why I always paint the same subject. And the reason is because, if I'm brutally honest, okay, so I'm past retirement age. I'm 72 and I'll be 73. When will I be 73? Next February sometime. So you can work out, that's getting close, isn't it? In my head I'm 16 and the body is about 1,000 now, I think, the way it feels occasionally. But yeah, I'm retired. I don't have to do what anyone wants. Just do my own thing when I want to do it. Which I have to say is unbelievably appealing. Now, I don't think it matters particularly what job you did when you were younger. I was a commercial artist and designer of magazines, art director of several national magazines, all that sort of stuff. Very stressful, quite interesting. Met some really nice people, worked with some people, and it was, let's put it this way, varied. It was quite varied. But now that's all done, I don't have to get on a train in the morning, or I don't have to drive halfway across a country just to go and be stressed somewhere else. I can just sort of do as I like. So yeah, that's why I paint what I paint. Clouds, landscape, no, I said landscapes, and mostly stormy. I like stormy, I can't help it. I'm sure if you've been following me or if you're one of my subscribers, you know that I like stormy landscapes. Can't beat them. Something about them. Which reminds me, let's have a little bit of storm up there. Payne's grey. So this is basically ultramarine white, royal blue, Payne's grey. That's it. There will be a bit of Japanese red later. There may be, well, on the land there'll be some sap green, red ochre, and maybe a few other colours. See how it goes. So let's have a nice heavy bit of cloud there. Okay, now that's a nice sort of neutral grey there, but it's not got enough punch yet. So I think we'll just sort of address that. So I'm loading up the brush with Payne's grey, not adding any extra oil. I just want a dark cloud or two up here. In fact, the next reminds me, the next painting I do after this one is going to be how to paint a calm sky, just for a change. See if I can do it. I don't know. I mean, maybe I can. I will probably do it for my next Zoom class. My next Zoom class is November the 16th. And I'll put a link below in case you want to go. What else am I going to say? Yeah, I'm going to try something a little calmer, less turgid. Won't be easy. So this, as you can see, putting this colour up here has suddenly brought that closer to us. It's just the way it works. Dark, hits the eye, quickly. Right, so down here, let's just put in some grey, because this cloud's obviously, I don't want it to look too isolated just on its own up there, so I'm going to sort of let it flow down here a little bit so it's broken off another cloud. Let's have a little bit there. See, you don't want cloud, 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 cloud. Right, you shouldn't be able to count the clouds. They have to be flowing together. And you can test this theory yourself. Just go out, look at the sky. You know, I mean, if you've got a blue sky with two clouds in it, right, that's probably not a good painting subject, but each to their own. But generally, you know, when you've got a good cloudy day, they're all sort of flowing and connected. Have a little bit more just there. So bigger, and the clouds as they go down gradually obviously get smaller. Let's have a few dark ones along there. Plenty of space for the landscape. It's not going to be a big landscape. It's going to be a token landscape, let's put it that way. So let's get some very pale grey. So no mystery here. It's exactly the same brush. All I'm doing is adding a bit of white. And then as it comes along the horizon here, it starts to get really bitty. And I'll break this all up a bit more as we progress. So there we go. Simple Skies, a refresher course, that's all it is. And it's also, as I said, just to get me going again. And you can paint along with me. I know I'm going a bit fast, but you can always pause the video. Now, if you've got this far, let me just say, if you haven't subscribed, it would be really nice of you if you did. Now, I put these little things on the screen every now and then, like this thing here, but I think people ignore them. You know, it pops up, it says, please subscribe, and you know, I do get subscribers, obviously, and I'm doing okay, but the more the better. The more I get, the more I can actually afford to make videos. Because, as I said earlier, I am retired, and I live off my painting now, so. More subscribers, the more viewers, the more the algorithm likes me. And unfortunately, I know it's a nuisance, but there are adverts, and I have a little bit of control over adverts, but it's not a lot, you know. I can sort of go through and do a little bit of tweaking in my settings to take off adverts that I decide are slightly bad taste, or things like, I don't know, it depends what you don't want on your channel, but there are certain things I don't want. I won't go into it, but you'll notice they're not there, I hope. But the adverts, you can always skip the adverts. Right, big dry brush. I just want to do a quick blend to see where it's going, see how it's heading on into the wild blue yonder. Or the wild grey yonder. Okay, so I'm not worried about streaks at the moment. There will be streaks. So yeah, if you want to subscribe, please don't let me stop you. Hit that button. Or as the younger people say, I sound like an old man, don't I? As the young people say, smash that subscribe button and help an old guy eat. Right, I think I need, oh here we go. Right, I need a small brush, which I now have. I'm not going to bother giving out the sizes because they're, you know, this one's this big. It's not very big, about an inch. And all the reason I got this one is just to sort of do some little fragments. Now, if you, everything's very simple at the moment. It's a very, very basic sort of sky. But the thing that makes skies look big is when you have multiple facets of light. So if I just sort of scumble over this, scumbling or dithering, I don't think I'm quite at dithering age yet, but, well, I don't know, certain things make me dither. Adding facets, it makes the sky look big. Simple as that. There's no mystery. Don't forget what I said at the beginning. If I can do this, you can do it. I'm not drawing anything. I'm not sort of, you know, being an artiste with a pencil, because that's what puts a lot of people off. Not the idea of me with a pencil, but the idea of having to draw anything. This is not drawing, this is just sort of dabbing until it looks good. There we go, lots and lots of little dib-dabs. We've got a grey sky at the bottom in the distance there. It'll make more sense when I put land in. At the moment it looks a bit like land. I don't want that. I want that to look like sky. So I'm just going to just take that and just put some lines across there. Not lines, that's the wrong word. Just simplify the bottom a bit. And then I'll be painting into that whatever the landscape is going to be. Now, what I'm sort of playing with in my head is making the landscape out of just sort of grey and blue. Will that work? I think it might, you know. Let me see if I can give you an idea what I'm talking about here. If I take, right, so this brush, this is the one I started off with, that's the 5 centimetre, if you know what centimetres are. Some people don't, but it's about an inch and a half, somewhere around there. Oh, no, almost 2 inches. So if I just get some blue and some Payne's grey, and then to that I'm going to add a bit of Japanese red. Call me daring. Now then. Oh, and this is a message to Michael. Michael, you've bought one of my paintings, and I'm very aware of your ongoing struggle to find Japanese red. So I went to the shops. One of these will be in the package with your painting. Inside several plastic bags, just in case it gets squished, because if it does get squished, I don't want it all over the painting that you're getting. So I'm making a colour here, which is Ultramarine, Japanese red, Payne's grey, and it's like, you know, it's that colour. It's a sort of greyish, maybe you can see that on there. It's a greyish, bluish, interesting colour, and I want to just give a feeling of a landscape over here. Very, very slight connection with the land and the sky, and then I'll try and make that look fascinating if I have still got it. The ability. I had a dream the other night, actually, and in a dream I woke up, and it's funny when you have a dream that you wake up in, and I dreamt that I could no longer paint. I'd completely forgotten how to do it, and I think that's actually been playing on my mind. A little bit of self-doubt. Can't think why. Now here, I don't know whether this is going to be, they're going to be trees, they're going to be trees or a hill, I don't know. A bump, it's going to be a bump in the landscape. What happens if I, who knows? And who knows what I was going to say, I don't. Let's just push paint until it starts to do things. So I want this really simple. Now if you are a painter and you are thinking of, this is where this could be useful, you see. Now if you're a painter and you decide you want to paint a picture of, I don't know, a house or a farm or something, and you may get very, very tied up with getting the building or buildings in your painting so that they are perfect. But then you've got to put in the landscape. It won't be nice and professional and sort of zappy unless you can actually do both. You've got to, if you're going to paint a building in a landscape, you've got to paint a good landscape and a good building. So this, if you do this and get this landscape all right, perfect, finished, let it dry and then put the building on top. That's one way of doing it. Not everybody does that, of course, but it's one way of doing it. And that might help with your confidence. Not sure about this landscape yet. It may completely change. It's a strange colour. Yeah, I think I'm going to, in fact I know what I'm going to do. Right, so the next stage of that, I'll be going back to the sky in a moment. Next stage of this is to, again, mash it up and pull it into the sky, because I want it. I want people to look at it and not really know where the landscape starts and the sky finishes. I've always liked that look because you can't get more perspective in a painting than when you do that. It's such an instant effect. So if you can't paint distance, this will automatically do it for you. Now here, right, I'm going to push that again as well, or as well again. No, I didn't push it before, so this is there we go. That's starting to get fascinating. Not for everybody. If you're still here though, maybe you do find it fascinating. Just keep doing that until it sort of, I don't know, arrives somewhere. Okay, so distance. So what are you getting out of this video? You're getting perspective and clouds. Now up here, this is very light. I'm thinking that I will have quite a lot of white up there, which will then run into the grey over here. And in a moment I'll be going back over here and adding as many twinkles and sparkles as I can muster. Yeah, the landscape is starting to do something. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but it's doing it. It's doing something anyway. Right, so let's get a few more little bits of white in here. Just want to sort of just touch it in a few places. Again, just to remind you, you know, you can do this as long as you relax. Don't worry about it. Just do it. Do it and see what happens. So I have a flurry of... See, I'm doing that. The reason I do these little things like this is it gives you an unpredictable bunch of marks. I don't want anything predictable or repetitive. I'll be going over this with the blender again in a minute. Sounds like I'm cooking, doesn't it? I'm going to use the kitchen blender on this, just to make it interesting. Before you go off to the kitchen, don't. I was joking. Let's have. That's it. Ooh. That's a good spot there to have a bit of contrast next to the dark. So I'm going to put some there because light, you know, I'm always saying it, light in clouds bounces all over the place. So you can do unpredictable things. You know, there's some light hitting this cloud here because the light is probably coming across that way. It usually does on my pictures. And so it's going to hit a cloud sort of there. I'll blend that down in a minute. And I think it could probably leave the painting on the top right-hand corner with a bit of light. Let's just put some white there. And that will start to work with what's next to it when I blend it. What should we do over that side? Okay, well I think I'll get the top left doing what I want it to do. What do I want it to do? I want it to, I want to continue the grey here. And then here, and there'll be a little bit of white coming down that way, which will be running through the painting. So let's push that over to the left a bit. I get a lot of people asking me if my paintings are for sale, which is all very nice that people are asking. Some are, some aren't. I'm keeping most of them basically to hand down to my descendants. So if you are interested, I mean, feel free to ask. My paintings aren't cheap. There's no point in being cheap. I'm not afraid to ask what I really think is a fair price for a painting. Bearing in mind, here's a thought, in the 70s and the 80s I used to do illustrations and stuff for various magazines or what have you. And even then I was charging up to £50 an hour for the work that I was doing. So that was expensive then. I suppose it would be considered quite expensive now. But you have to bear in mind, it's a very strange subject. Some people say, oh, well, I sell paintings and I sell them for $5 per square inch. I don't even think of square inches or any kind of measurement thing like that. I mean, if it's a painting that's this size, just to give you an idea, a painting this size, by the time I finish with it, it's going to be €2,500 to €3,000, which is about the same in dollars. And it's irrelevant whether it takes me an hour or 10 hours or 20 hours, because I can do it. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not trying to sound top heavy, you know, big-headed or anything like that. But if you can do a painting that looks good and will last several hundred years, and you can do that in an hour or two, that means you've practiced. And believe me, I've practiced. So if you do want to buy a painting and you ask me the price, don't be too shocked. What I'm hoping to do is pass on to other people how to do it. That's basically what I mean, I paint for my enjoyment, and I paint because I have to eat and all that, but I do have this sort of warm, cuddly feeling inside that, yeah, maybe after I'm gone, there'll be people out there who say, oh yes, it looks like you might have learnt from that old fart, Stuart Davies. So who knows? I do hope that it does put you on the right path. I get lots of messages saying some people say their lives have been changed because they thought they couldn't paint and then realised they could. And I did get a message from someone. In fact, I've had a few from people who obviously have been at some kind of crisis and were, let me put it this way, how do I explain it? Certain words you can't use because of the algorithm. Honestly, the algorithm's a pain in the rear, isn't it? Some people have said that they were just about ready to self-harm, let's put it that way. And then they started looking at my videos and it helped, apparently. Now to me, that's wonderful. I think that's great. Makes it all sort of feel worthwhile. So, yeah, don't give in. Life can be hard, but you just got to keep going. Keep getting up in the morning, doing what you want, doing what you like, and doing what you can. And you never know, you may be pleasantly surprised with how things will change in your life. And actually, I'll tell you what, painting it's really good therapy. It's helping me a lot because as I mentioned earlier, and you may know, I'm not awfully well. I've got a dicky ticker. I have heart failure, which I won't go on about too much, but there are people who have it much worse than I do. And it's not nice. That's an understatement. It's deeply unpleasant. So if anyone out there who has a chronic illness, you have my total sympathy. Remember when I was young and the days when you think that you're indestructible, and I could never imagine ever being ill. I used to get things, I'd get flu, but pretty badly too sometimes. But I could never imagine being chronically ill. But one thing I have learned is, painting does actually help. It's like a meditation for me anyway. And it does that, I've been painting now on this video for, I don't know, I always lose track of how long I've been painting, but a while. Let's just call it a while. And I'm feeling a lot better now than when before I started. Right, I'm just going to put a little bit of Japanese red in it there. You may not see much. I have to go and look at my viewfinder. Oh yeah, that's okay. That's actually quite nice. Now, I'm at the stage, before I get back down onto the land, I'm going to do some smoothing on that. But what I'm looking for now is compositional stuff. Things that will make the sky work better. And I can see a couple of things that I need to do. Much more white just there. Blending first, of course. More fragmentation of clouds here, and then the landscape. Right, so I know where I'm going on it. So let's have a quick blend or blur. I call it my blurring brush, not my blending brush, because I'm not actually blending each little bit of cloud. I'm blurring the whole sky. Okay. Let's see what happens. Do you know, I haven't looked over my shoulder today much, so I don't know whether I'm in the way or not. I hope so. I hope not. So apologies if I am getting in the way. Coming together. So what I was saying earlier about getting as many bits of fragment of cloud in your painting, the more you can get in, the bigger the sky looks. And let's face it, the sky's quite a big place. And don't forget, clouds have to go off the edge. Okay, there'll be more blurring in a moment. You have to admit, that's a very quick way of painting a sky. Now, for the landscape, I think I'm going to actually, I can't resist it, I've got to put some trees in. So, a new brush, let's just move the camera slightly. So for the landscape, you see, I've automatically given myself a whole load of distance through there. So I don't really need to paint on that part. However, I do think I do want slightly more interest in the landscape. Probably, I don't know, there probably will be trees. So let's get on. This sort of landscape would be great. Now, supposing you were a wildlife artist and you wanted a nice backdrop to put a few elephants in or something like that, this would be probably the sort of thing that you'd want to go for. You've got a reasonably calm sky at the moment, but I will add some light highlights in a moment, probably with a palette knife. Right, now for a simple landscape, and you know by now, I hope that I use a lot of this colour, sludge, sap green red ochre, because it works. That's the only reason. There's nothing mystical about it. It works. So, for instance, I want to put a landscape along here, and it's gradually getting stronger because there is the sort of borderline between the foreground and the background there, like so. So what I could do now, before I do anything else, okay, so I've just got some paint on there, I could now smear that right across. Pulling it into the sort of grey reddish colour that I've already got on there. Okay, so there's a very gentle transition from that colour to this colour. In fact, I'm going to make that slightly more blended with this. Again, dirt cheap. No, I think this is a French decorating brush. Well, they all are, but this is a very small French decorating brush for getting into the places where the big brush won't go, I guess. Let's just pull these together as well now. How's that looking in my viewfinder? Not too bad. Not too shabby. Okay, so let's take that right across there so it's all nicely blended in. And then let's put some more colour. Let's start to get a little bit more solid now. Let's have a little bit of a headland there, very gentle, simple I do like simple. If I can get the landscape to work in 5 brush strokes, I'll try and do it rather than 500. It gives a clean, slightly slick. Slick is okay. Slick. Some people don't like slick. They like to avoid it. But if you can make it work, in other words, if you can make it really slick, that can look pretty cool. Let's just see what happens when we do this. It's something that's always interested me in paintings, the diagonal line in the foreground to lead people in, but I don't necessarily like it. And if you don't like it, it doesn't matter, you can just sort of go over it like so. Think of something else. I quite like the board showing through, because the board is part of the paint. Well, it sounds really silly, doesn't it? But the board is part of the painting. So if the board is showing through, same as if it was canvas, you know, some people paint on canvas and they sort of capitalise on the effect of the canvas showing through the paint. I don't actually like the texture of canvas in a painting. I like to paint on wood because it takes a beating, in other words. I can sort of make my own mark, so to speak. Let's see what happens here when I do this. Question is, are you seeing me doing it, or are you looking at my shoulder? Talking of shoulders, I'm hoping that my shoulder has stopped bleeding now, because the cat, Tiger Lily, also known as Studio Cat, decided to climb up me. I was wearing a jacket, luckily, but it was a long, slow, calculated climb, designed to remove flesh, I think. But hopefully not too much damage. Let's just sort of so this inventing landscapes thing, this comes from when I was a visualizer years and years before computers were even thought of. Quick look in there. Yep. A visualizer used to invent stuff. So you get an idea for an advert or something, whatever. You never know what was coming through the door if you're a commercial artist. You've got to be ready for anything. Then you had to be able to invent, and that's where this comes from. I can sort of look at a board like this and make up a landscape. Now, some people may say, well, I can't do that. When did you last really try it without trying too hard? In other words, relax into it. Just let it sort of come together. Which is precisely what I'm doing. And I'm trying to do it without making too much detail. It's detail that doesn't exist. This is all the illusion of detail. Now, if I could, I don't know whether I'll ever do it, but I haven't done it for years. But if I could do it, and I had the energy, I would go out and sit in front of a nice big complex landscape with a really big canvas and sort of, you know, do it, copy it. But I have a problem with my eyes in that, and this is not a new thing. I just cannot take bright lights. If I look at a, let's put it this way, if I go down to my post box and I take whatever mail I've got out and open it and read it, even if the sunlight isn't that bright, by the time I get back to the house, I can't see anything. I can see what I'm looking at. You know, I can read the thing in front of me, but then when I come into the house, it's almost like snow blindness. I can't see a thing. So imagine a day looking at a great big bright canvas. That would really play havoc with my vision. So I probably won't be doing that. It's a good thing I can usually just go out and look and remember it. Okay, now this is I'm really trying to keep the landscape simple as possible. I'll probably leave that bit of board showing through there. What are we going to do over there? I think I want to simplify even more. So I think I'll take, let's take that up and let's put a bit of a hill in front of that, whatever that backdrop is, that colour there. So let's have a hill. With some trees on top. Now, has that hill got enough? Hasn't got enough guts. Let's put something up. Let's add another layer just there. A few little bumps. They're probably trees. When you get bumps in a landscape, you can usually bet that they're trees. Okay, that's coming together. So probably back to the sky now, I think, and then I'll sort of cogitate on the landscape. Is it enough? Is it enough? I don't think it's enough actually to go to the sky yet. I think I want to just break that line there in a few places. This as usual will end up as you may think, well, that's the painting, but this is, to my mind, this is the drawing phase. So I'll be changing this. When that's dry, I'll go into it and sort of add things, take things away, all kinds of stuff. Let's have a bit of a line coming down there. Okay, now all I want to do really on the sky now is just a little bit of palette knife. And as usual, the thing I use the palette knife for is usually just highlights on the clouds. In fact, am I showing you enough sky? Probably, yeah. I'll move the camera in a minute. So all I want to do is just add a bit of you can always tell when I'm concentrating because I say things like that. I'm going to add a bit of, you can see what I'm adding, can't you? Now the thing about a palette knife is that I'm working on wet paint, so I'm using the palette knife to lay the white paint over the wet paint underneath. And that means that I can retain the contrast. Don't forget to wipe your palette knife every now and then, because otherwise it just doesn't work. You'll end up pushing around a colour that is not the colour you want. Let me have a little think here. Let's have another bit of light just catching under there, I think. A few little, you know, think of clouds as not lumps, you know. Don't do the cauliflower in the sky. Avoid it as much as possible. Well, in fact, completely avoid it. What you want is the feeling of the wind blowing the clouds around. See? Highly irregular edges. If you oversimplify, you will get the what I call, and in fact I'm sure other people call it, the cartoony look, which you really don't want. Down there, do I cover that part? Just about. So when I blur now, I would be careful of the landscape, obviously. I don't want to change that. In fact, if I ever decided to sell this painting, I wouldn't call it a landscape per se. I would call it a skyscape, because it is mostly sky. I've ignored the rule of thirds. In fact, you know, 2/3 sky, 1/3 land. This is less than 1/3 land, and it's often quite, you know, the way I like it actually. If you do use cheap brushes like this, go through it before you finish and just remove any bristles. Because when the paint's wet, it doesn't really matter what you do, because you can cover up the mark that the bristle makes just by waggling a brush over it quickly. So, yeah, any bristles, is there one there? No. Annihilate them as soon as possible. And apart from subscribing, I should mention it. I don't like mentioning it actually, because I'm still not used to the idea that I have a Patron page. It's almost like, it's a bit like sort of, well, I thought it was like begging, but it isn't really. I suppose it's, if you're a patron, you get perks. You get the chance of getting a painting. You may get this free if you get picked. Let's just have a bit more there, I think. But if you pay the equivalent, what's it, 30 euros a month, you get, and my classes, they cost 30 euros, you get 2 classes a month, free. Well, not free because you're paying in Patron, but you know, you're only paying for one lesson. So if you fancy being a patron, the link is below. And as I said, these paintings that I showed at the beginning of the video are free paintings that I'm just giving out because people are patrons. And it doesn't mean that they've paid a lot. You don't have to pay a lot to get a free painting. It's just being a patron. So, yeah, that's something to consider. Okay, now I'm going to blur that again, and then that may be the end of the class today. It may not, because you know what I'm like, maybe. I change my mind often. So let's have another quick go with the big brush. Right, just a reminder, it's this and this, right? I'm using the side of the brush and then the side, not the tip. The paint just happens to gather there as I flip over, I think, but it's the side of the brush, not the tip. So let's just see what happens when we do this. Now, if you feel as you're doing this that you're making too many streaks, just give the brush a wipe. See, now I've mashed that up. You probably can't see it maybe, but I've mashed up that area, getting the bristle off. So all I've got to do is just that, and it, you know, it's fixed. Okay, right. While I'm doing this, I just say, you know, for board preparation, if you're going to paint on board, I use plywood 3mm thick, I think. Yeah, it looks like 3mm thick. It's called Ochre, and don't use pine. Pine is absolutely dreadful. It falls apart. It's happened to me years ago, but it won't happen again because I won't use it again. So this is Ochre. It's a sort of nice tight grain, and then I sand it. Just, you know, you don't have to sand it to oblivion. Just sort of take the edge off it, so to speak, and then I put a coat of gesso on it. Don't worry about which way the gesso brush marks go. Some people say, oh, you should paint this way and then you should paint that way. That's a complete waste of time. Just paint in any direction you want, and then sand it again. That sorts out the brush marks. And then put another coat of gesso on it. Let that dry. It usually takes about an hour, depending where you live and the temperature, because it is. It can be diluted with water, so it's, you know, it dries through evaporation, and as opposed to oil paint, which is oxidation. So yeah, then when that's dry, you sand it again, and then third coat. Sometimes I sand the third coat. Sometimes I don't bother. Lately, I have been doing that. I used to not bother, but yeah, it gives you a nice smooth finish. And that means that you make the marks on the painting. You dictate the final look, rather than canvas telling you what the texture will be. I like to make my own texture. Right, so almost there. This composition is just ending a little bit too suddenly, and I think I just need to sort of have something there like so. Just mash it around a bit and then swipe it a couple of times. And I think we're almost cooked, but not quite. There's always a not quite with me. I just have to keep fiddling. Once I get going, I find it tricky stopping. Okay, so I can't play the music, Send in the Clowns, but do you know, I have to tell you this. When I was younger, I always thought the song was Send in the Clouds. I didn't realise it, because I'd never seen it written down. I didn't know it was Send in the Clowns. What do you want to send clowns in for? You know? Clouds are much more interesting. I can't play the music because I'll have to pay for it. All kinds of copyright stuff. So imagine it. Great song, by the way. Really got a lot of feeling in it, which is what you want in your painting. Get as much feeling as you can into the picture. Right, I think I'm going to wind up there. Last bit with the blurring brush. See, it doesn't take long. The other important thing, by the way, apart from this technique, is know when to stop. It can make or break a picture, depending on where you stop and when you stop. So I think that's my stopping point. I'm reasonably happy with that sky. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. And don't forget, smash that subscribe button. Mash the little bell icon so that you know when I next put up a video. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.